Good Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Browns OTAs going out in Berea. The media able to get in and watch the guys going through the work, as Kevin Stefanski likes to say, on the grass. Let's take a look. Browns heading out to the field. A good look at Jedrick Wills, our first chance to see some of the new free agent signings. Deshaun Watson trying to get some work in, a little bit of a check down there to running back John Kelly. Watson also got in plenty of work with his wide receivers, also doing some passing drill work, working on the footwork. Deshaun Watson. First look at some of the new edge rushers. Okunrankwo setting the edge there. Zadarius Smith going to work on the bags. Jim Schwartz, very hands-on, wearing the number 51 jersey to order Jordan Kredic as well. So some notable guys not there, and it's important to note, voluntary organized team activities. Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, Joel Bitonio, David Njoku not present. But not a big deal. Again, all voluntary work going on out in Berea. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, again, not a whole lot going on, but it is the first look at the installation, some of the new guys, a new defense and a new offense, for lack of a better term. It's going to look different.
Oh, offensively, yeah, there's no question. Kind of ironic maybe that Nick Chubb isn't there because, this is something probably that, the Browns weren't going to work on much anyway. All of this now is about, Deshaun Watson, the evolution of the passing game, taking this team to a team that's going to throw the ball exponentially more here in 2023. The defensive side of the ball, it's, basically starting to put, some names with some faces and actual physical bodies, for Jim Schwartz, as, there is so much newness on the defensive side of the ball, himself obviously being new, putting in a system, a bunch of new players, whether it's a secondary, new players to him at linebacker, new players to the roster all over that defensive line. Just basically, a lot of it, handshaking, hello, getting nice to know you, and let's get you out there. And, yes, you may have done this a million times, but you may have been coached a million different times on how you want to do it. This is the way I would prefer for you to do it if you're going to play for me. Basically what the beginning of OTAs are, and just trying to get everything in line. So when you do basically ramp it up in July at training camp, everybody's going to be ready to go and know what's expected of them. Yeah, without question.
So Juan Thornhill and Zadarius Smith, two of the new free agent signings that figure to be important players on this defense, talked about what they have seen from the new defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz.
With Coach Schwartz, I like what he's doing. Like right now, he's not really putting guys in a free safety spot, a strong safety spot. We're just playing left and right, just basically so we can learn every position pretty much. So I like him because he just let guys play football and play fast. So that's the main thing.
Like really hands-on when he's out there with you guys.
Oh yeah, he got a lot of energy for sure. He got a lot of energy, and he wants his guys to be great and make a lot of plays. So he looks out for his players for sure.
Great DC, man. You talking about the DC? Yeah, man. Great DC. I got a chance to talk with him when I first came in, and he was telling me all the things that he wanted me to do. And he was like, man, we just need you to get off the ball, man. We know that you haven't had that in the past 8 years. And if I had the opportunity, I probably would have had 100 sacks by now. But I'm just happy to be here, man. Happy to be with him. Happy to be with the coaching staff, man. This is a great organization. Can't wait.
How much impact? I was going to ask, the last couple of years, knowing you've had double-digit sacks in 3 of the last 4 years, coming into this system where the goal is to have those guys up front, get to the quarterback, have the sacks spread out. How exciting is that for you? How much higher do you think your ceiling can get?
I like it. I like the question. I feel like it'll be great because, like I said, when I first started playing football, I was in a 4-3 system, and I was always taught to just go get the quarterback, affect them. In this situation, being here now, I get the opportunity to do that. So I just can't wait. Can't wait to get going, man, and hopefully I have double-digit sacks again this year, for sure.
And, when you hear some of the guys talking about Jim Schwartz, hands-on, energetic, enthusiastic, so all good things. You're going to hear that early on, but it's good to hear.
Well, I think that's what you want to hear. And look, Jim Schwartz, he's had a long-established career in the NFL. He did not necessarily have to come back if he didn't want to. When he realized it was, a prime piece like Myles Garrett to come back and get to coach, and he's always been a guy who's emphasized defensive line play. I'm sure Andrew Berry, Coach Stefanski, gave him, the utmost assurances that they were going to go heavy on the defensive line and give him the ammunition he needed to create this new defense here for the Cleveland Browns that has probably underachieved in the last, I'd say at least the last 2 of the 3 years. So, he knew what he was coming into. So, it wasn't a situation where he was forced or any of those things. He chose to come in here and do this and basically once again fire up one more defense, maybe for his last run as a DC in the NFL here, and maybe start to put the stampings on another defense, but this time for Cleveland, something they haven't had in years, as far as a formidable defense front to back.
Yeah, and Greg Cosell, NFL Films, really good at X's and O's film breakdown. This is from his X's and O's podcast, talking about what a Jim Schwartz defense looks like and what to expect.
He wants to be able to rush the quarterback with 4 and then do some things on the back end. In Philly, he did a lot of things, a lot of sort of disguised coverage looks, where it almost would be, it would look like cover 2, but it could be cover 3. He tries to cheat the gray areas in zone coverage so that the quarterback doesn't get a clean look. And the offensive coordinator, as he calls plays to attack specific zone concepts, doesn't get that clean sense of, okay, we're going to call some routes that can attack cover 3, but it really becomes cover 2, and maybe those routes aren't there, or let's attack cover 3, but it's not really cover 3. So ultimately what he likes to do is rush 4 and do some things on the back end to just, add a beat or 2 to the quarterback's deciphering thought process as he drops back.
And, the one thing, Jeff, he's got we talk about the line and how the line's important. He has a lot to work with in the back half of this defense.
Well, you have the holdover, obviously, in Grant Delpit going into year 4 now. Last year, Denzel Ward, maybe it wasn't his best year in Cleveland, but still a formidable player. And I think there's going to be an opportunity for Denzel Ward to make more plays here in 2023, just due to the fact that you're talking about you're going to get more pressure on the quarterback. It obviously leads to more opportunities where defensive backs can make plays on the ball. But the Juan Thornhill one was the big one. And Juan obviously just spoke here that maybe there isn't necessarily a strong safety, free safety role yet, but there will be one coming. And Juan Thornhill is one heck of a free safety, has the athletic ability to be the guy to play on the roof, can go left, can go right, can go deep, legit speed, 4-4 guy, in the deep part of that secondary. You pair that with the 3 holdovers at the cornerback position, Grant Delpit, who in 22 and 21, the second halves of his seasons were incredible. So, yeah, there's the makings there. Linebacker, it's still going to get figured out as to, who eats the reps, who gets the most playing time there. But what you're looking for Jim Schwartz is, I've got the secondary I'm looking for, and I can go deep at defensive line. And those are things that you normally have grown accustomed to from a Jim Schwartz defense.
You mentioned Juan Thornhill. He talked about having Rodney McLeod as part of this and what McLeod means to the defense right now.
So with Rodney, he's actually played in this scheme before. He knows a lot more than we do. So he came in day one giving us little nuggets to help us play better. So we both went to the University of Virginia, so we kind of know each other a little bit, and I just feel like we can relate in that standpoint. But Rodney's a great guy to add to the room. He's been here for a while. He's been in the NFL. He knows what to expect. So he's a great guy to have in your room to help you play better.
And you listen to Juan Thornhill, a guy that's been to 3 Super Bowls. He's picking Rodney McLeod's mind because Rodney McLeod's been in the NFL a long time.
And Rodney McLeod also is an owner of a Super Bowl ring. Part of that Philadelphia Eagle defense. Rodney McLeod, and we saw this when he first signed, transitioning, while still playing into what's going to be the second half of his football life. Is it going to be on the sidelines? Is he going to be in front of the camera? He made his debut, over on NFL Network. But you bring a guy like this in for the specific aspect of that. Look, Jim Schwartz doesn't have time to sit down and break down every little single thing to a nuance and maybe change verbiage so these guys understand it. Whereas, Rodney McLeod can say, oh, yeah, well, that means blue. He just calls it that. It's something as simple as that. So it just makes things easier, for guys as they make the transition. And obviously, Rodney McLeod's resume speaks for himself. He was still a playmaker last year with the Colts, even though, he's getting up in years. Always been a guy that's been able to get by on intelligence with his ability. So you bring him in, and it's perfect because, he comes in, and granted, he is nowhere near probably going to be considered a starter, but you got the top 5 defensive backs who are going to play the most amount of time. They're basically hanging on every word he's saying because you're basically getting a bought-in tutor into the Jim Schwartz defense.
All right, before we go to break, this from the Bleacher Report. One move every NFL team still needs to make in the offseason. And for the Browns, they say, sign another linebacker. Injury stung the unit repeatedly in 2022, and Cleveland only added undrafted free agents. Maybe that works out, but the Browns have a small margin for error, meaning in the linebacker room. I could see that, but if they do that, they probably don't have to think about that until cutdown day, 53-man roster day.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with it, but we don't know who the other starting defensive tackle is yet on this team. So if you were going to ask me which was the move I would make, it's probably going to go be and, go find a defensive tackle, because the idea of this is to get out of base defense as quickly as possible and get ourselves to nickel and dime situations where we were going to be getting the linebackers off the field anyway.
Yeah, and again, those are all things that will be sorted out through training camp. It's not like there is a sense of, boy, you got to do that now. Jeff Lloyd and I from the Locked On Browns podcast going to step aside, take a quick time out on the side of the break. We'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit more about the defense and some about the offense. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I don't understand why everybody is getting on or feeling nervous about Kevin Stefanski as a head coach, and the simple fact that he's being educated on a system that he wants to run. Everybody knows he wants to run a heavy shotgun package, RPOs. Now, when you install that, that's not an easy thing to install. I mean, it takes time to install the RPO packages, and the RPO game is not as easy as people think it is. Like, it's really hard to really execute, and it takes time for your players to get used to that type of scheme. So we have to understand that, yes, Kevin is a really, really smart and bright head coach, but he will be a fool not to collaborate with his coaching staff.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, I think he collaborates with them quite a bit. The challenge was you had one quarterback for 11 games last year and Deshaun Watson with a different skill set for the final 6, and you had no time to transition.
Well, I mean, you look at it through 3 years. You went to the playoffs year 1 with a quarterback that you thought was your team's quarterback. Year 2, broke his shoulder and ended up becoming, almost, had zero effectiveness to his game. You went into last year and you made this monster move to get yourself what you think is going to be your franchise quarterback for the next decade, but it came with a caveat. You didn't have him for the first 11 weeks. And, you look at teams and, ideally what do you say? Oh, we would like our backup quarterback to be, somewhat like our starting quarterback. Well, that didn't work out. Jacoby Brissett is, he's just, we've talked about it many times. He's just a, bigger guy, his mannerisms, everything with his game is just a little bit slower. It didn't mean Jacoby Brissett didn't play well for this team, but he did. But he was nothing like the quarterback that they were waiting for. And by the time they got here, the team had so many deficiencies on defense, they weren't able to play the style of ball they wanted to, which was throw it early and then run it to close out games while you're winning. They weren't in that position to do that. Now they're hopefully with a better defense, with more skill players on the offensive side of the ball at the receiver positions, able to integrate in what can fully be the Kevin Stefanski offense with a player like Deshaun Watson running it.
Yeah, and along those lines, Kevin Stefanski has some guys that are new at the wide receiver position. He talked about Watson developing chemistry with those new wide receivers.
Yeah, I think that's why we are here. That's why we have this offseason program. Marquise Goodwin and Deshaun really throwing together for the first time. As you add new players and adding Elijah to the mix, you want, as a quarterback, to all these reps, you take mental notes, and you're thinking about how a player came out of this route, how he came out of that route, and every single rep, whether it's in individual period or it's in a team period or it's in a 7-on-7, you're constantly adding that to the checklist, if you will, so that you get to understand your players, because that's important. We may run a 6-step route, and the 6 steps that player A takes are a little bit longer than the 6 steps that player B takes. So you're taking that into account as you throw that throughout the spring.
And what he's describing is chemistry and timing with the wide receivers between the quarterback and the wide receiver.
Well, I mean, look, you look at Cedric Tillman at 6'3". You look at Elijah Moore at maybe 5'9", maybe 5'10". There's no way Elijah Moore is going to be able to run the same route that Cedric Tillman does in the same amount of steps. He just is not that long. His stride is not that long. But in the same respect, though, he'll probably run the route quicker than Cedric Tillman will, just because he has better foot speed and he just runs quicker overall. So there's a lot to factor into it. And even still, think about it, though. How much of a relationship to this point does he truly have with Amari Cooper or even with Donovan Peoples-Jones? He had 6 regular season games. The practice time was limited. So now here it is. And I'm not saying new, obviously, because those guys are not new to him yet. But this is also why you get the trip where they go away together and you start to just work on things and starting to understand each player individually. And there's more that goes to it. Hey, when he's running an out, does he like it lower or does he like it by his eye level? Does he like it by his hip level? It's, you're trying to find a way for your quarterback to establish what he needs to be for each one. As a quarterback, you kind of have to be, almost like a psychiatrist. You have to understand what makes it work with each receiver, because obviously you want them to do the best for you. So the best thing you can do as a quarterback is make sure that you're putting them in the best positions to succeed, which ultimately helps you succeed and the team succeed.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 6 games last year. Amari Cooper was hurt, so you're not even getting Amari Cooper at full speed for those 6 games.
Well, and then one of those games was an absolute wash, the Saints game on Christmas Eve, where you're talking in the negatives. And obviously the team was already behind record-wise. I think at 4-7 by the time Deshaun got here. So you were thinking, you needed absolute perfection from Deshaun Watson to even have a sniff at the playoffs. Look, they took the gamble. They made the right move. They went after the quarterback they think is going to be the best thing for this franchise. The only thing is they basically had a punt on year 1 of it. Yeah.
So now, that's the reason you see the moves you see, because it's time to win. Juan Thornhill, we've talked about him a little bit. He talked about what attracted him to the Browns.
I like to be like the underdog a little bit, going into the season, not everyone thinking that you're going to be like the number 1 team. Like Kansas City, everybody put them up there at number 1. They think they're going to win every year. But me coming here, I feel like I can add something to the team and bring something to the team to get us to that top level. And I just will feel accomplished if we did that.
Well, and last year there was a lot of communication problems. Obviously, you weren't here, but has that been discussed at all since you've gotten here, trying to make that an emphasis to clean up?
Not really. We don't really talk about too much about last year. Like I said before, it's a new season. With me, I'm the type of guy that likes to be very vocal. So I'm gonna try to get my guys lined up as much as possible and be pretty good at what I do. So we don't talk too much about last year.
And the vocal part of that is going to be key, and that's one of the things I'm sure that Jim Schwartz and Andrew Berry liked about him. Vocal means less chance of communication breakdowns.
Well, and also the thing is, with it, Dave, is who's doing the speaking, because that's crucial, because it should be coming, the last line of defense should be the ones letting everybody know where they're going to be. So when the safeties are speaking, now the corners say, all right, well, I know I don't have help on the inside. I've got the help on the outside. So what do I got to do? I got to make sure, I'm funneling him this way. I'm not funneling him that way. And, with Juan Thornhill, we talked about this before. You don't go to University of Virginia, just on football scholarship. University of Virginia, they got to take you academically first. And you can hear it with Juan. Obviously well-spoken. I'm very excited to be here. And look, for Juan, it's one thing to be a part of the Kansas City Chiefs, but what does everybody say? It's Patrick Mahomes' team. When you leave, and here's Juan Thornhill with 2 Super Bowl rings, you do want to carve maybe a little bit of name for yourself, a little bit of niche for yourself. So if he can come here and be this free safety that the Browns have been trying to find for, it feels like almost years now. The ultimate free safety, a guy who can cover, a guy who can create turnovers, make turnovers. So bringing him here, and the other thing as far as, but what's Juan going to do? So, hey, guys, let me pick at some scabs. So how bad was it last year? How bad was the communication? And you can't really talk about something that you weren't part of. And why would he get in those conversations? And he was like, oh, well, yeah, it must have been really tough as, we were all riding buses, cracking champagne bottles.
Yeah, and Jim Schwartz wasn't here as well. So, yeah.
Of course.
The other guy that is new and expected to do really good things, Zadarius Smith, talked about his goals for this year.
Well, my main goal right now is get a ring. That's something that I never had experienced. So that's the number one goal, is help this team win a Super Bowl. Well, first of all, win the win the division, and then go on and play in the Super Bowl. But after that, hopefully I can get a Defensive Player of the Year. I think they was close to saying something last year about it, but as we all know, I got hurt. But, I don't focus on that. Self-goals is something that's going to come once you play part of the team, once you do your job, basically.
You were off to such a great start last year.
Yes, sir.
How frustrating was it to have, it was the knee, right, that slowed you down?
Yeah, it wasn't frustrating. A lot of people didn't know in my contract I had it to where I had to play every game to get my bonus. So certain situations, coach was just telling me, give it all you can, and then we'll just rest you from there. So I wasn't as effective as I was at the beginning of the season, but I'm all healthy now and ready to go.
And being healthy and talking division, that's the one thing that he talked about. Let's go win the North. And that's kind of the mindset of everybody that they have brought in. Winning the division is important.
If you're in the AFC, look, you don't want to end up where you're going to get into this crazy mathematics of the wild card. It doesn't matter if you're in the North, the South, the East, or the West. You want to win your division, because then you will not have any sleepless nights. You will then know you are going to make the playoffs. The entire AFC is just extremely deep. We had these conversations last year. Some teams did not look as good as we thought, Denver maybe being one of them. Certainly the Browns, some people thought they would be contenders as well. But this year, you got to think it's going to be even more of a true dogfight in the AFC to get those 7 teams that are going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, without question. And, you probably have 10 or 11 that are going to be battling on top of each other to get those 7. Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll hear more from Zadarius Smith. Also hear from Elijah Moore, Sports4CLE. He'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. We heard Zadarius Smith talking about winning the AFC North. He also talked about some of the things that he could help not only the defense but the team in general with as far as winning that division title.
I feel like the leadership, and just keep harping on it, just keep saying it, because once you do that, it can happen, speak it into existence. And I'm big on that. Like I said, just doing the little things, staying after practice, getting some extra reps. Before I was talking to some of the guys about fixing their feet, because some can get reached and they'll get cut off, and I could tell them, like, look, in the backfield, you can see the near gun and far gun sets. Focus on those type of things, to help your game. So I feel like doing the little things like that will help us go a long way, this football team.
And Jeff, when he says keep saying it, it's making sure that people believe it. That's kind of speaking it into existence, is believe what you are saying.
Oh, and there's no doubt. And look, Myles Garrett, and he can be the greatest leader he wants to be, but Myles Garrett can see things one way and, reflect upon what he's seeing to his teammates. But, everybody looks at him and says, well, that's great. We're not 6'5". I don't have a 45-inch vertical jump. I do not run sub 4. You get a player like Zadarius Smith where his work ethic, his creativity, his mind have become ways to overcome the fact that he was not an elite athlete, which has led now to him to have so much success in the NFL. A lot more players have things in common, athletic traits in common with Zadarius Smith than they do with Myles Garrett. So there's more you can essentially pick up from Zadarius Smith essentially than you can pick up from Myles Garrett. Not everybody is just the elite and tremendously raw athlete that Myles Garrett is. So he can give, a lot of tips, and this is the way I do it, and this, that, and the other thing. But if you aren't working with the same goods, it's not really going to do you as much good as it is going to come from a guy like Zadarius Smith, who's a little bit more on an equal level with the other guys on the Browns defensive line.
Yeah, there's like 0.1% of the population is on par with Myles Garrett athletically.
It's like me and you going to take dunking tips from LeBron James. That's fantastic. You can teach us all day long, bro, but we're still not going to get off the floor.
This from ESPN's Get Up. Dan Orlovsky, top 5 AFC quarterbacks who are under the most pressure. Number 5 is Lamar Jackson. 4 is Tua. 3 is Mac Jones. This is who he says is number 2.
Number 2, Deshaun Watson. Everyone knows that Deshaun Watson is incredibly talented, and he's got the huge contract. Here's the crazy thing. In the last 3 or so years, he's got 7 touchdown passes. 7. For that amount of money, I want to see, does Deshaun look like the Deshaun of old? The bouncy, sudden, springy, dynamic athletic talent? Because if he does, Cleveland's a sneaky playoff team in the AFC.
I agree with that.
But it's time to get back to that 2020 Deshaun Watson.
And, Jeff, in fairness, those 7 touchdown passes are in 6 games. But to his point, yeah, this is when the Browns, if that trade is going to work, you got to start seeing that progression towards the quarterback you think he is.
Well, I mean, that is the ultimate question. Can he get back to that 2020 form? When you say it, and it's been 3 years, well, keep in mind, one of those seasons he didn't play. The other one, he missed 11 games. So, I mean, it's not like he was playing, and these are the stats he accumulated. I mean, Kenny Pickett, look how much he played last year, and he only threw for 7 touchdown passes. The key is going to be how much can he get back to the player he was in 2020? Can he get 100% of the way back? Can he get 90%, which would probably be good enough? Maybe even 80% would be good enough. But it was tough. Obviously, when he came back, it was later in the season. The weather wasn't that great. We saw Washington where it was a great second half, and you were able to win that game. But we didn't get to see, the whole total Deshaun Watson package. So the question is, until we see it, how much and, how quickly can he be the Deshaun Watson that the Browns believe they were getting to and made this heavy investment into?
Yeah, without question. Well, Elijah Moore is a guy that Andrew Berry went out and got to kind of be one of those weapons. Moore today talked about his impressions of Deshaun Watson working with him.
He loves football. That was the first thing off the rip, I was probably most excited, to see up and close because I heard all the stories growing up, watching him in college, seeing all those national games and watching him work and stuff like that. So seeing how much he loves football, we were in the hotel and he's in the playbook. When we chilling on the beach, we just got done working out. We all got to work on it, and he's still in the playbook. So seeing how he is with that only gives us more confidence. Okay, let us go look at the playbook one more time. So I can't ask for nothing better.
I know as a quarterback, he seems to really excel in scramble drill and improvising a little bit. Do you think that those skills suit you and that you guys have kind of a natural chemistry to be able to excel in that area?
I feel like we don't have a choice. With him having that, component of with his legs, I feel like you have to be good at the off-schedule stuff. It's just gonna have to be part of the game.
Is that off-schedule stuff exciting for you?
Yeah, I feel like, man, they get tired, we keep running. We run all day anyway, so I guess it's just another tally for us as far as positive.
And Jeff, I love hearing that. You don't have a choice if you're a wide receiver. You better figure out how to make the off-schedule work because that's what's elite about Deshaun Watson.
Well, and that's where, the big plays technically come from. Look, if you go, straight through script, the quarterback takes his drop, finds a man over the middle. even if he's open, ideally the defense is planning exactly where that guy would have been open, and hopefully take him down off the top, take him down right away after the reception. Doesn't work that way all script, man. That's kind of when it goes back to a little bit, backyard football, finding a hole. And, obviously, you need to see your quarterback's eyes. You need to see what he's seeing. You need to see the open window where he thinks the open window is. And, that it takes time, certainly, but taking trips like that, studying the playbook together. And then when you look at it and you sit down and you say, all right, well, we run this, they run this. If the O-line protection breaks down, guess what? You know what? Back corner here, this third, most of the time this safety has a tendency to walk up. We can be behind him. And that's what, work is and putting it in. And, Elijah Moore, an elite athlete, really, really quick feet, just a smart overall wide receiver. That is part of the game where he excels. And, he's used to it, played it in the SEC, but not one of the top dogs in the SEC. So I'm sure there were a lot of times his quarterback at Ole Miss was harassed and he had to get, basically come up pretty quickly with, think quickly on his feet and find the open hole.
This is also kind of interesting. So this is from the Caps Off podcast, tweeted by NFL Game Day. Top 5 most underrated players. They go Dak Prescott, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Deshaun Watson, and Trevor Lawrence. It's really interesting that I think nationally that might be pretty accurate. People are kind of saying, well, can he get back? Can he get back to the 2020 Deshaun Watson? Seems to be a big question mark, more so nationally than the folks locally. And I don't know, when I watched last year, there were plays in each of those games that you were like, that's the guy the Browns need. It wasn't enough of an extended period, but there was something from every one of those games where you're like, that's what they need.
Oh, if you go to the Washington game, there's plays where, he's dodging sacks. He's ducking, jiving, moving. But the thing is to put it all together. And, so much of it is a timing thing. And it's rare. We don't ever really get an NFL player who misses basically a season and a half due to injury. They miss maybe a year, but they're back in time. And you also have to factor in the fact that it was, it wasn't that he was gone and then he just came back. He was gone, came back to a brand new team, brand new coaching staff, brand new offensive system, an offensive system that ran the ball pretty much 50-50 as much as they threw the ball because they were good at it. Why not? And now, even still, you add in here now, more receivers brought in, Elijah Moore. You bring in another tight end. You draft a Cedric Tillman. So it's when will, Deshaun firmly be in grasp with all of this? Only 6 games, certainly not enough to embrace all the newness. But this offseason, OTAs, training camp, you got to figure by September, late September, we're going to hopefully start to see what will be the ultimate version, and hopefully a darn good one for the Cleveland Browns and their quarterback, Deshaun Watson.
Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, Kevin Stefanski will talk a little bit about Bubba Ventrone. We'll also talk about that dynamic duo of Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Kevin Stefanski talked about what he has seen from his new special teams coordinator, Bubba Ventrone, early in the OTAs.
Yeah, Bubba's in great shape. I get to see Bubba work out. He probably could still play. So it's the old do as I say, not as I do. Well, he can actually do it. So he's and we'll even watch some tape of Bubba in his meetings. He'll pull up some tape with the long locks flowing out of that helmet. So but he's done. We're again kind of going back to the earlier question about our defense. We're being very diligent about how we build this thing, and Bubba and Coach Bravo, they've done a nice job of really laying the foundation of what we're doing.
And Jeff, the thing that you continually hear is it's different personalities for Jim Schwartz and Bubba Ventrone than it has been from Joe Woods and Mike Prefer. And I think it's a good thing. I think you want as many different personalities on that coaching staff as you can have.
Well, Jim Schwartz comes in here with this proven track record. And, whatever we thought of Joe Woods, Jim Schwartz comes in here and, you go resume for resume versus resume. Jim Schwartz is going to win that 9 times out of 10. Bubba Ventrone, like Coach Stefanski said, he comes in here and says, look, I ain't asking y'all to do nothing that I ain't never done. So if you have questions, I'm a perfect guy to ask because I've done it. I've busted up walls. I busted up blocking wedges. I've had to do all this stuff in my day.
Yeah.
And obviously very committed to what he does. And you come in and you want to come in positive. You want to be that guy. Because Bubba Ventrone, his eyes are not on just being a good special teams coach for the Cleveland Browns. His eyes are on what other jobs can I get in the NFL higher up the food chain. So this is what you need, and this is people were these upgrades. These were they were significant upgrades. Bubba Ventrone played special teams in the NFL for 7-8 years. Jim Schwartz, has been a head coach, has had dominant defenses in many cities already in the NFL. These were huge upgrades. You expect them to come in and act like they feel like they're upgrades, and at this point, it seems like they have.
All right, this from Next Gen Stats. Turnovers forced by pressure since 2017. Top of the list, Myles Garrett with 24, Yannick Ngakoue 19, Barrett 18, Fowler 17, Aaron Donald 16. Again, those are numbers based on Myles Garrett being a lone guy that can create that pressure a number of times as well.
Well, there's just not enough superlatives to put a player like Myles Garrett. There's not. We've danced and kind of romanced with the fact that maybe Myles Garrett could eventually be a defensive player of the year. Obviously, a lot of that comes down to overall team success. A lot of that comes down to how good are the players that you're playing with. You look at it now with a player like Dalvin Tomlinson. You look at it with the addition of Zadarius Smith, the addition of Okoronkwo. You're at least 3 deep minimum at the edge room. There's other guys there. Obviously, Dalvin Tomlinson will be the best defensive tackle that has been on the Cleveland Browns roster since the day he's been here. The opportunity for Myles to possibly ever take home that coveted Defensive Player of the Year award. And sorry, Zadarius Smith. If there's going to be a Defensive Player of the Year for the Cleveland Browns, it is most likely going to be number 95. And I think it's going to be because he's now playing with players that are a little bit more commensurate to his talent. The production matches things. And we don't say that often that, players come here and have production that maybe is on par with Myles Garrett. We saw maybe 1 year of it with Jadeveon Clowney, and then we absolutely got the worst of it in year 2. But you start bringing in guys here who have a reputation that they've done it year in, year out, and there's not been seasons where they basically mailed it in.
Yeah, and Smith also had 16 pressures since 2017, so he was tied with Aaron Donald for 5th. Smith.
Yeah, they didn't know 5A, 5B there now.
Exactly. It should just they didn't have enough room on the graphics, so he should have been next to Aaron Donald. But Smith talked about just playing alongside Myles Garrett and how he's approaching it.
I can't wait. I did get a chance to talk to him. Once I did get the news, I think NFL posted it, and he sent me a text message telling me that he can't wait to get going, and hopefully we could be the best duo in the league. And I was telling him, man, like the D-line, we got to come up with a name for the room. So he was like, all right, I'm going to get some shirts. We're going to make it big. So that chemistry already, I can tell is going to be great this year.
So, Darius, going off of that, during your time with the Packers, you and Preston Smith had a tandem doing your press conference together and such. How do you anticipate your tandem with Myles Garrett being different, just personalities-wise? I mean, if we're being honest, Myles Garrett's a totally different.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like once he get here, I'll be able to get a feel for him, They say he don't talk much, he's kind of shy a little bit, but we're going to get him to open up, man. We're going to have a good time while I'm here, for sure.
And, Jeff, there's a confidence with Zadarius Smith that you like. You want that. And good units usually have that confidence bordering on cocky, and that's a good thing.
But you see him, and he barely knows this media. And he's there, and, very rarely do you get any athlete say, hey, that's a good question. Here he is. This is his first time doing it and, basically going that route with it. And this is leadership is something that you can try and work on. You can try to become a better leader, but it's something that's either within you or it's not. And look, Miles does everything that's asked of him. And as far as leadership skills, it's there. But overall, and you just heard Zadarius say, hey, he's kind of quiet, a little bit shy. It's just not necessarily who the man is. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. His play on the field is leadership, and that is what the standard should be. Lay it out on the field every single snap. But it's not a bad thing to bring in a guy like Zadarius Smith and say, hey, he can take some of that weight off of Myles Garrett, and let's not have Myles try to be somebody that essentially he isn't. You know, it's just something that you are or you aren't. But also, Myles has never been anywhere else. Zadarius Smith has been a Baltimore Raven. He has been a Green Bay Packer. He has been a Minnesota Viking. So he is used to walking into different locker rooms, learning all about new teammates, being up, Myles has been here his entire career. He's never had to do that. So for a guy like Zadarius Smith, it is a lot easier. Myles was, a top recruit at Texas A&M, #1 overall pick. Things just really, not that he didn't work for it, but things really came very easy for him as far as his success. Others, not so much. And again, Zadarius Smith, for most guys in the NFL, is a lot more relatable to than a guy like Myles Garrett is. So unless you're, into Dungeons and Dragons, unless you're into some of the other stuff that Myles Garrett is off the field, you might not be able to relate as much as to Zadarius Smith, who gives off a very common man vibe.
Yeah, and you know what? It'll be interesting to see how they can develop that line, and that's going to be a big part of that defense without question. Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
No problem at all, Dave. Appreciate you guys for always having me. You guys all have a great day.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. Locked on Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
In these video clips of Deshaun throwing, in these OTAs, is Kevin wants Deshaun to get rid of this ball really, really quickly. And, that's really the MO as far as quarterbacks in the NFL now. You have to get rid of that ball really, really quickly because everybody has some elite pass rusher or a good sense of pressure. So, you have to get rid of the ball quickly. I noticed that Jalen Hurts did it a lot this year. Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. There's no more holding the ball anymore longer, and I like how Kevin has found or is starting to find ways get the ball out of Deshaun's hands in the shotgun.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Tim, right now they're working on timing and those kind of things. I think Deshaun Watson's going to have much more freedom as a quarterback in this system this year than we've seen a Browns quarterback have in quite a while.
100%. I mean, it's not just, the fact that he's expected to play the full season, that he's gotten some, live reps already as far as, finishing out the last 6 games of the last season. But I think also, for familiarity with Kevin Stefanski, this is their second offseason they've worked together. Clearly, on paper, Deshaun Watson's the most talented quarterback this team has had, in a very, very long time. So you would think he's got the freedom to really control the offense all he wants. He's got a new slew of receivers. And there really is no excuse for him this season. It's time to go out and perform. And I kind of agree with you. The OTA is really just about, getting timing down with your receivers, quick throws, quick patterns, making sure you and your receiver are on the same page as where, he wants the ball to be, where your quarterback wants to put the football, so on and so forth. This is the kind of time when you really start to get the basics down of the offense, and then you expand it out so that by the time you get to training camp, you have a pretty good grasp of everything, and then you really start to build everything out. And I agree, the Browns got to be able to find a way to get the ball out of Deshaun Watson's hands. But the thing is, Watson holds the ball a little bit too long sometimes because he's always looking to make plays. So he's going to hold on to the ball a bit because he's always trying to create. He's going to scramble. He's going to, have some moments where he's holding the ball a really long time. It's just going to happen. All these great quarterbacks have it. Ideally, you want the ball to come out on time, but the NFL is not always about on time. It's, you got to make plays off schedule. That's the thing. That's a big thing with these quarterbacks. And, the great ones are the ones that can make the big plays when things aren't going according to plan.
Yeah, I would agree. And the ball out quickly will happen when they see, okay, this guy is playing off Elijah Moore, or this guy's playing off this wide. That's when you get it out, when I get it there. I got 5 easy yards. If he breaks a tackle, it's 15. That's out quickly, and that's what Joe Burrow does well. That's what Patrick Mahomes does well. That's what Josh Allen does well when it is there. It's kind of interesting. Elijah Moore talked about this wide receiving group and how everything fits together in his mind.
I feel like it's going to have a great impact for what he has done, years before, and for what I've seen him do in practice time and time again, and just the off-season work as far as the type of person he is. You can't do nothing but be confident in what type of person and what he's going to do out there. So,
piggybacking off of that, the guys around you, it's early, but so far, what have you seen from them that you think is going to be able to elevate your game and get the most out of you?
I feel like all the receivers, and I start with my receiver group first, I feel like they're all different, and I feel like that's a good thing. When you have all the same type of guys, it's like you're kind of seeing the similar things, and knowing that we're all different body types, different people are good at different things, so we all get to take it and watch what we see and put it in our bag, So I feel like that component alone is kind of all we need.
And again, Tim, that's why timing and chemistry is important. Everybody reads, a 5-yard out a little differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this team's got, like Elijah Moore was talking about, a bevy of different receivers. You have your technical guys like Amari Cooper, David Bell. You have your taller, more athletic, really athletic, jump ball guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones, Cedric Tillman, David Njoku. Then you have Elijah Moore and Marquise Goodwin as your speedsters at receiver. You can throw Anthony Schwartz in there if you want as well. So it's a bevy of different guys out there, and they all, like you said, they all do things very differently. And I think there is a benefit to having a very diverse group of receivers as far as skill sets go, because every defense you play in the NFL, they're going to be great at some things, not great at others. And so I think as you was pointing out, if you have 7 speed receivers out there, say you're going up against a team that has really good man corners, and they can match one-on-one because they're smaller guys and they know how to stay with those smaller receivers, then you have a massive problem. Whereas if you throw in some taller receivers who are just bigger and stronger than those corners, they're going to have an advantage. And you could see, the Browns are going to see matchups, that favor one type of receiver in 1 week, and then another week it'll be another different receiver that has a matchup advantage. It's just the nature of the schedule and the nature of the way, 32 different team building philosophies. So it comes down to, it's good that this team has diversity of receiver. And again, when it comes to timing, this is what the next few months are about. That's what the trip to Puerto Rico was about, getting the timing down so that by the time, week 1 rolls around, when the Bengals come to Cleveland, the Browns can be ready to go and try and hit the ground running as best as possible.
Yeah, along those lines, this is teams that have dominated the offseason by Sam Monson, Pro Football Focus. So these are all teams that have earned A's in offseason grades. The good news is the Browns are there. The bad news is so are the Steelers and Bengals, in addition to the Eagles, Giants, Chargers, Colts, Lions, Broncos, and Bears. How do you think the additions of the Bengals and Steelers impact what the Browns have done and have to worry about? I know you've written an article about that as well.
Yeah, well, when I look at the Bengals, first of all, the big thing is, they continue to improve the offensive line. It was, again, an issue towards the end of last season. Joe Burrow took a lot of hits. And as we've seen, throughout his short time in Cincinnati, the Bengals need to keep protecting Joe Burrow well. And in the AFC Championship game, getting sacked 5 times. So that was a huge issue. Then they go and bring in Orlando Brown Jr. to be the left tackle, moving Jonah Williams over to the right side. That's huge because the last couple of years have shown that if the Bengals can protect Joe Burrow, their offense is almost unstoppable because they already have those 3 elite receivers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Joe Burrow has quickly become one of the best quarterbacks in football. You keep him upright and you really make it harder for defenses to get pressure with just 4 guys, then that defense is going to have a very long day. So for the Browns, I think that's a big thing that they got to be able to do is they got to figure out how to get pressure with 4 guys, even though, like I said, this offensive line for Cincinnati looks better. Where it helps in right away is they play week 1. So if you're going to take advantage of a team's changes on the offensive line, it's going to be early before they establish chemistry. And going over to the Pittsburgh Steelers and where they've, made upgrades, it's clearly been in the secondary. They signed Patrick Peterson. They drafted Joey Porter Jr., who should have been a top 20 pick. They took him with the first pick of the second round, and a pick that I think we all knew there was no universe in which that pick was going to be traded with Joey Porter Jr. available. I think we all knew he was going to be going to the Steelers, and it makes sense. They've had issues at corner for a long time. Now you add Peterson, now you add Porter Jr., and then you look at the Steelers' defense. It's better built to go up against these high-flying offenses in the AFC North, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Browns. The Steelers clearly, when you look at just pure quarterback talent, are in 4th place right now, unless Kenny Pickett, has a real breakout season in 2023. So the approach they've had, to me, has been they're trying to improve a lot of aspects of their teams, specifically the defense, trying to make that better. They also help improve the offensive line by trading off the draft Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle from Georgia. I think it was with the 14th pick. So they're trying to improve everything around the quarterback to make his life easier. And, if your quarterback only has to score 17 points compared to 25 points in any given game for your team to win, that's a huge advantage. And we know the Steelers, they're always kind of a pesky team. They're so good, they're so sound on both sides of the football. They just have to figure out a way to make up the difference in the AFC North games between the quarterback, because outside of quarterback, because you, like I said, you look at all 3 teams they play against, they're going to have a disadvantage when it comes to talented quarterback.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Zadarius Smith and Kevin Stefanski. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Zadarius Smith talked about his reaction when he found out he was traded from the Vikings to the Browns.
I was excited. I get a chance to play in a 4-3 system, and that's something that I never played in while I was in the league. So I was happy, man, and knowing that I get a chance to go be with Dalvin Tomlinson again and get a chance to be with Miles, man, it's a great feeling.
You spent so much time playing outside linebacker, right? But you're big enough to play in.
Yes, sir.
Do you think it's going to be a natural transition for you, something you've been looking forward to?
Yeah, it'll be natural because I played it in college. And, I played it in junior college. And my first year of high school, that was my first time playing football. I was a 4-3 end. So I'm used to it, but it's been 8 years, so I'm trying to learn the new techniques and get back to what I used to do, man. Yep, hand in the dirt. Yep.
And when you listen to him talk to him, he's kind of anxious to do that. It was get after the quarterback, and that's what Jim Schwartz wants, get upfield.
100%, and I think what's interesting with Zadarius Smith was that, he played in 3 Pro Bowls in his career. In some ways, he did that kind of on his own where he was the number one guy. I know in Minnesota they have Danielle Hunter over there, but the way he was going at the beginning of last season for the Vikings, he was basically their number one guy until teams started to scheme up and really try to take him away and make someone else beat him. Now, all of a sudden, he comes to Cleveland, he's a legitimate number one defensive end on a lot of teams. He's going to be number 2 now because you put him opposite Myles Garrett and you put him in a scheme, in a Jim Schwartz scheme that is designed to create a lot of havoc with pass rushers on the defensive front because just the way he lets those guys go and how aggressive he is with getting crushed with 4 guys. It's a good fit, I think, for him. And for the Browns, you add another high-level starter to this defensive front. And if you're going to have success in a Jim Schwartz defense, you got to be able to create havoc up front with just 4 guys. You bring Zadarius Smith in there, although, again, he has to adjust again to getting the hand on the dirt full time, as opposed to being a 3-4 guy most of his career. All of a sudden, you have a front that has a chance to create a lot of problems.
And they will bump him inside, and that'll be another thing that, again, there will be certain guys that Jim Schwartz views that as a huge mismatch, and he'll put them inside.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun of, Jim Schwartz's defense. He's very creative. Talking about getting pressure, he can put 5 on the line, 4 on the line, any combination. And what I think we'll see is a group that's relentless, that continues to get after the quarterback. I said before that I feel like the Browns defense, the past couple of seasons, they were more kind of sitting and waiting for teams to come at them instead of trying to be tone setters, going out and establishing yourself and try to be assertive on that side of the football. Jim Schwartz will make sure, in my opinion, that this defense is much more assertive and aggressive and, takes it to an opposing offense as opposed to just letting an offense, kind of try and make a mistake and maybe playing more bend but don't break style defense.
Well, Kevin Stefanski earlier today talked about pairing Zadarius Smith with Myles Garrett.
Zadarius has been awesome, just having him in the building. He's a ball of energy. He's great around our players, our young players. He practices hard. He does a great job out here when he's in the building, in the weight room, in the meeting rooms, on the field. He brings some juice to what we're doing.
How do you think he can help Myles and kind of vice versa?
Yeah, I think all good players want to play with other good players, and I think it brings out the best in each other. I think competition obviously breeds that, but also when you're pushing, when you have good players, particularly on either side of the ball, or either side of the formation, I should say, that are pushing each other, I think it has the ability to bring out the best in you.
Now, the other thing is, if you got elite guys on both sides, you can't cheat, really.
Yeah, and I think that's been the issue for most of Myles Garrett's career. Offenses have really slanted protections in his direction and really prevented him, from having easy matchups. And, when it comes to Zadarius Smith, he should be the most talented defensive end Myles Garrett has played with. We've seen what, that defensive line could look like when, Myles has someone good around him. We saw in 2021 with how good Jadeveon Clowney was when he was healthy. That was the Clowney I think everybody thought the Browns were going to get when they signed him, and that's what they got in 2021. Less so the case, obviously, in 2022. But you add Zadarius Smith. Of course, you can't forget Obo Okoronkwo. You can't forget Isaiah McGuire. You can't forget Dalvin Tomlinson. This is a new-look defensive front that the Browns are bringing out. And I'm sure Myles Garrett had to be extremely happy with, all these additions that they brought in. Last season he took on so much of the workload. He was responsible for so much of the sack production the Browns had a year ago. Even if his sacks go down a little bit this season, the fact that there's so much more talent around him and playing next to him on this defense, it should make his life easier. Because, he may have to do less to be just as impactful because, there's many other guys who can step up, who can get to the quarterback, who could create their own pressure and make their own plays. And that's, I think, that's a big thing to me that's been missing, by and large since the Browns drafted Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And playing less snaps on the defensive line keeps your legs fresher, keeps you healthier, and allows you to be more productive. So that's what I'm expecting from Jim Schwartz and that defensive line. Tim Bielik, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Make sure you check him out. Always insightful stuff with the NFL. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.